In another video, I told the story of getting my Honda motorcycle running. And a large part of that story was actually going to a local community garage and asking for some help from some of the guys there. These guys were able to solve a problem I had been struggling with for about 3 months in like 3 hours. And they didn't ask for anything in return. Now, obviously, I'm really grateful for them, so I've been trying to brainstorm some ways I could maybe repay the favor. And I think I've come up with something pretty cool. So, when I started working on my bike, I made this test light. And the purpose of this was solely functional. But I think because of the material choice, it actually doesn't look half bad. And so I want to lean into this for a gift. And I want to make a functional, yet aesthetically pleasing test light. And then on top of that, given that this is kind of a difficult thing to store, I thought I'd make a little stand for it so that it could also serve as just a lamp. So first, just to go over a few things I want to address for the gift. First is this cord. It's pretty ugly. It's hard to tell on camera, but it's really kind of uneven. It was just torn off of a lamp cord, and I'd like this to look more purposeful. The second is this connection to the alligator clip. The third and final thing just has to do with the rule or design philosophy that I've been trying to employ, which is that this piece has been glued together and cannot be taken apart without damaging it. And then for the stand, I was imagining using something like this for the alligator clip to grab onto, and then another hole in the base for the test light to sit in. And this being a 12-volt bulb, this will actually be my first battery-powered lamp. And so in the bottom, there'll just be a small battery holder instead of the usual outlet. And as you might have noticed, I've decided to do this whole thing out of cherry. And the reason for that, as evidenced by this hammer handle I made a couple years ago, is that cherry develops a really nice patina the more it is in contact with hands. And so, this being a tool that is going to live in a community garage, I hope it gets a lot of use, and I think cherry is just going to look better over time in that environment. Now, unfortunately, this is kind of the best piece of cherry I have, so I want to get both parts out of this. So as you can see, I've already marked out, I'm going to take off this section on the table saw for the body of the test light, and then this I'm going to make into a square for the stand. Alright, so it's the next day, and I got the batteries and battery holders I was talking about. And for a 12-volt battery, I was expecting something much larger than this. But this is good because it means it'll fit in this small base of the lamp. I was worried about that. The other thing is, running it off one battery, I'm worried about battery life and about how bright the bulb is. So to extend battery life, I wired 4 of these all up in parallel, and I threw a switch in there so you can see now when I turn on, it's actually pretty bright. I don't know exactly how long it's going to last, but I think for sort of like a desk ornament type of thing, this is never really going to give off a ton of light anyway. It's mostly just like kind of a cool way to store the lamp. So I think this is fine in terms of brightness and estimated battery life being probably like a couple hours. Alright, so now I'm going to assemble the test light and stand, and I'm going to walk you through some of my design decisions while I do it. So we'll start with the test light, and here we have the rod which goes through the base of the lamp, and first I'm going to go ahead and screw that to the socket here. And I decided to buy some single conductor wrapped cord, and this is the gold color from Grand Brass, and I think it works really well because it matches the brass accents on this piece. Alright, so with the test light done, we can move on to the stand. So first I'm going to throw on the flange and the loop here. And that just goes on with these two screws. Alright, so now we can get into the circuit of the lamp, and the way this works is on the one side I have this screw which drops down and you can access from the bottom. And on the other side I have this small brass piece that I made. And this hole in the top is tapered, and at the bottom there's a lip and then a smaller section which is threaded. And so now you can access both the positive and negative sides of the circuit from the bottom, and both have a washer and a thread and a nut. So now I can bring over the circuit, which I mostly put together. You can see here I ended up ditching the battery idea because of a concern of how much battery life this was going to have. I tried to calculate it and I think I only got maybe an hour or two. So instead I'm using this small transformer, which is just, it's for like LED strip lights, but all it does is it takes 120 volt AC and turns it into 12 volt DC, which is perfect. So I'm going to drop this in here, and at the same time I'm going to push the switch in. The switch threads on from the outside with this small nut. It only grabs like one or two threads, but it doesn't really need much more. So the circuit is basically just wall power into 12 volt DC. One end goes to this ring connector and the other end goes through the switch to this ring connector. Now I have this brass lamp nipple bolt here that goes in the side, and this is for wall power. So I can bring this in here. Alright, and with that all tucked together, we can throw on the bottom lid here and screw it down. Alright, this was a really fun project. I think it turned out really well. It's my first 12 volt project. I don't see myself doing a whole lot more of those, but it's cool to include some new electrical components like that transformer, and to make some custom parts like this test light holder. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and thanks for watching.